Good morning, everyone. Don't you just love that intro music? Doesn't it get you in the mood to hear something interesting or learn something for the day? Anyway, glad you're attending. Glad you're listening in. Today we're going to talk about feeding the hungry, but it's different than you may expect. So, wanted to jump right in. It'll be a quick one, but a good one. So, I just finished reading a book called Let Them Lead. And for those in Minnesota, hockey's a lot bigger than it is here in Utah, but Olympics just ended. Utah just got the 2034 Olympics, so we're excited to have the Winter Olympics back, which of course will include hockey. I don't know much about hockey, but the book was great, and it was mostly about leadership. So the subtitle to the book is Let Them Lead, and it says Unexpected Lessons in Leadership from America's Worst High School Hockey Team. And it's kind of the story about how this young coach took the worst team in the country who hadn't won in 3 seasons, I think, in Michigan area, and eventually kind of helped them grow as leaders, as a team, take pride in what they were doing, not just show up, get beat, and then laugh. Stories were told that they would go to like the dances and the stomps, and they had stomp may not be a word some of you know, I don't know, but they had t-shirts that said 0-20 for their hockey team, and they were just laughing and joke about it because it was too painful really to talk about the losses and how much it hurt. So it was a coping mechanism to talk about failure and laugh about it and joke about it and think it was funny. So he came in and really changed the attitude, changed the team. It's a really good book, and obviously sports fans, it's kind of fun. But my favorite thing I took away from the book was this term. There was an Insight Global consultant who talked about the concept of feeding the hungry, but he talked about that in the context of the workplace. So we'll dive into that a little bit. There's this principle called the 10-80-10 rule. Urban Meyer talked about it on sport teams, but in a lot of organizations, this is a framework that typically plays out pretty well. That there's the top 10% of any organization, sports team, business, charitable organization, whatever. The top 10% are what you would call kind of the elite. It doesn't matter what leadership does, doesn't matter what coaching they get or mentoring they get. They are completely self-driven, and they are going to go out and crush goals. They are going to bring other people along with it. They are going to be leaders because they want to be and they need to be. It's who they are. Then there's 80% in an organization that may be kind of compliant, and they'll kind of go with the winds of the team. So if the team has really strong leadership, they'll get right in line and follow. And that's where you get amazing sports teams or business organizations that really win and lead because a lot of people jump in and follow. And then in some organizations, they talk about how there's the bottom 10%, the resistant 10%. They're too smart for their own good. They're smarter than everybody else in the room, or they're not going to be, influenced by this rah culture or this lame idea that they've heard 30 times, but have never actually implemented in their life. So this 10-80-10 is a principle that kind of applies to some organizations that I think was interesting. And so the concept of feeding the hungry was you spend time on those who truly want to improve and want to get better as managers and leaders and team members. This doesn't have to do with management. This doesn't have to do with specific titles in an organization. This is every single person can be a leader. And how are we going to make and improve our teams and make that more effective? So what does that actually look like in practice, maybe in our organizations? And we'll talk about a few things and see if you can, recognize some of these mindsets or some of these ideas. So let's first talk about, sometimes it's easier to define what it isn't than what it is. Who's not hungry? These are people who hate change. They always think they know best. They're usually fairly arrogant on the outside, meaning, for example, we used to have a welder who no longer works for us, but he was the most arrogant outside. Oh yeah, I can do that. I've done that 100 times. I do all these things. And it was a coping mechanism because he was deeply insecure. He knew he didn't know those things, and he made a lot of mistakes because he never learned from others. He pretended like he knew everything, and in doing so, he refused to listen. Another one, they're unwilling to listen to others that are above them, that are below them, or that are lateral in the organization. We try to have fairly flat organizations that are very obsessed with team and working together, and not really have a hierarchical structure in our businesses and in our lives. And so I think that's really important, that, people who are not hungry, are not willing to listen and learn. They think they know best. And then there's also this other concept of, they have a victim mentality. They say things like, oh, it's not fair that blah, 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 blah. And no matter what comes after that statement, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because you are the victim and you're acting like there's nothing you can do to change. They may also say things like, oh, they, whatever that means, they don't understand, blah, 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 blah. Same thing. You're kind of going back into this victim mentality instead of a growth mindset. So let's talk about the other side. Who's hungry in our organizations, in our lives, our families, our kids, whatever? Who's hungry? What does that mean? Well, they're self-reflective, I would say. First of all, they're striving to improve and get better. They're open to coaching and trying new approaches, even if they think it won't work, even if they have different ideas. They're open to trying. Let's give it a shot. Let's see. Let's test it. And they have more of a growth mindset. So they say things like, "What can I change?" They see themselves as a principle of change and as a person who can grow. They say things like, how can I improve whatever it is, my welding efficiency, my quality putting together windows, my safety, putting in doors and trim. How can I lift my teammates? They're not always self-reflective. They're thinking about the team. They're thinking about the person next to them. They're thinking about the new guy who came in 3 weeks ago. Hey, here's something I learned early on that really helped me. Try this. Or I saw you're really struggling with that. Take a look at this. How do I learn from the person next to me? It's really that mindset. So I love the idea of feeding the hungry, feed the people who want to learn. And those are the people who are going to grow fastest and grow most. And other people will either notice that they're the elite top 10% who get in line and try to learn as well. Or, to be honest, they may fall off by the wayside if that's not the organization they want to work for. If they don't want to grow, if they just want to punch a clock, that's not a good fit for us. And they're not hungry enough to be in that group. So anyway, I like that concept. Hope that helps think about things for yourself or for others, and go make an impact. Have a great day. Bye.